Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were supposed to be different. That was the pitch, right? The couple who broke away from the strict customs of the royal family to live a freer, more purposeful existence. No palaces, no pompous titles, just two people trying to do good in the world. They traded tiaras for TED speeches and royal duties for charitable endeavors and, in the process, developed a brand around kindness, influence, and authenticity. But now it's starting to look like the whole affair may have just been smoke and mirrors. At the center of this unraveling image is their nonprofit foundation. On the surface, it was everything you'd expect from a modern charitable power couple. Slick websites, emotionally driven speeches, and dazzling agreements with multinational businesses. Millions poured in from hopeful donors, folks who honestly believed Meghan and Harry were going to make a difference. But behind the curtain, it's a different story. A rising number of insiders are going forward, claiming the foundation was less about charity and more about funding a lifestyle. We're not talking about a few questionable expenses here and there. This isn't a case of too many first-class flights or luxury hotel stays. According to many former employees and nonprofit watchdogs, we're talking about a persistent pattern. Money being channeled directly into Meghan and Harry's personal accounts, often disguised as vague operating charges. And it wasn't a one-time thing. It's claimed to have gone on for months, maybe years. People linked to the charity claim the warning signs were there. Youth programs promoted with fanfare never got off the ground. Women's empowerment projects were talked about but never properly supported. Environmental projects remained stuck in planning phases while the foundation's bank account silently dwindled. Staff that questioned the finances were silenced, forced out, or given the cold shoulder. One former team member claimed the whole operation came to feel like a luxury brand masquerading as a movement. That hits hard when you consider the couple's public image. Meghan and Harry have established a post-royal persona around being accessible, grounded, and purpose-driven. They discuss healing trauma, supporting marginalized voices, and fighting for individuals who don't have a platform. It's exactly that message that made people trust them. That's why thousands of average folks donated what little they could. It's why large firms wrote massive checks. They believed they were helping develop something real. Turns out they might have just been paying for another fancy mansion or a trip on a private jet. And here's where things get worse. This isn't just about a breach of trust. It could be a criminal matter. Financial inspectors in the UK are apparently investigating dubious money transfers related to the organization. According to people close to the probe, huge sums of money were linked from donor accounts to offshore holdings and personal accounts affiliated with the couple. These aren't rumors whispered in halls anymore. These are legitimate investigations, led by specialists who know exactly what they're looking for. The silence from Meghan and Harry has been deafening. No thorough explanations, no public sit-downs to lay over the numbers, just cryptic legal rejections and slick Instagram postings. And that silence, it's simply making things appear worse. Because when you're standing on a platform constructed on integrity, the absence of clarity starts to feel a lot like guilt. The nonprofit world is watching. Donors are demanding records. And individuals who previously applauded for this fairy story are starting to wonder if they've been deceived. The cheerful speeches, the picture ops, the brand deals, it all hits different now that the money trail is starting to surface. Behind closed doors, the attitude inside the organization apparently shifted long before the public caught on. Staffers said the mission became unclear. The priorities were muddled. Meetings started to center less around outreach and more around optics. One guy described it like operating within a PR engine that donned a nonprofit garb. Internally, there were promises of significant efforts. Yet, when it came time to disperse funding or actually launch the projects, things got silent, weirdly quiet. According to others who were there, one of the initial red lights came from the budget talks. Staff were startled at how little money was being diverted to actual humanitarian programs compared to how much was being spent on consultants, trip coordination, and strategic development. The problem wasn't only the ambiguous labels. It was the fact that no one appeared able to explain what those terms meant or who exactly was getting paid. Some argued the figures on the spreadsheets just didn't make sense. You'd see $50,000 listed under community research, but when asked what it included, the answers would dance around the subject or transfer the blame. Nobody wanted to look too closely. Then followed the emails. Staff started noticing emails where Meghan or Harry would personally approve some spending that didn't look tied to any charity goal. One former employee reported that invoices for luxury accommodations and private chefs were flagged many times, yet passed every time. The excuse, it's part of branding. Apparently, preserving a specific image was defined as vital to attract contributors, even if the money was initially intended to aid homeless families or poor youngsters. That's where the narrative started falling apart. Some team members addressed their worries, thinking maybe there was a misunderstanding or internal mismanagement. But the moment they spoke up, they found themselves left out of email threads, excluded from meetings, and in some cases, discreetly terminated from the team. It became evident queries weren't welcome. One insider even indicated there was a list, an actual list of employees considered problematic merely because they kept asking where the money was going. Meanwhile, the couple's public appearances were increasing and becoming more lavish. Meghan would take the stage at conferences, offering passionate monologues about empathy and female empowerment while wearing expensive clothing worth more than the annual wage of some personnel. Harry would preach about climate change and sustainability shortly before boarding a luxury plane for another photo shoot or speaking event. It all looked nice on camera, but behind the scenes, disillusionment was settling in. Financial specialists, who viewed parts of the charity's internal records, think there's a worrying pattern. A big amount of the money brought in never made it to the ground level. Instead of supporting shelters or generating scholarships, the majority of donations were allegedly absorbed by administrative overhead, though even that word was obviously pushed beyond its legal boundaries. When auditors probed deeper, they found that some of the expenses were funneled through shell firms with ties to intimate associates of the couple. That's when alarm bells really started clanging. To make matters worse, some corporate sponsors, who had partnered with the charity, are now evaluating their contracts. These aren't small-time donors. We're talking about multinational brands who forked over hundreds of thousands, even millions, believing they were backing respectable organizations. Some of them have paused future payments. Others are demanding a complete audit, and more than one has quietly erased references to the cooperation from their website. The public may still be waiting for answers, but behind the scenes it's already evident a huge reckoning is brewing. The people who formerly stood behind Meghan and Harry, the ones who believed in the purpose and contributed their time, energy, and reputations, many of them are now walking away. The probe officially kicked off with little fanfare, but once it started, things escalated swiftly. UK officials launched a complete financial review of the charity's accounts, pulling bank documents, donor logs, and offshore account trails. What they found, according to early leaks, was a shambles. Large payments were tracked to shell firms, and tax havens and other contributions were labeled as personal consultation fees, with no record of what services were really performed. The paper trail wasn't just untidy, it was suspicious. One individual close to the legal team alleged that over $2 million in donor cash was transferred within a span of 5 months to accounts that couldn't be publicly substantiated. Some of those accounts were related to consultants with no internet presence, no LinkedIn profiles, and no track record of employment in the nonprofit sector. Investigators now believe those entities may have been utilized to covertly redirect payments without drawing attention. The entire operation, as one expert described it, seems engineered to look credible while doing the opposite. What makes this even more perilous for Meghan and Harry isn't simply the money, it's the intention. In UK law, misusing charitable money isn't punished lightly. It doesn't matter how famous you are. If the audit uncovers that they deliberately transferred funds for personal use, they could be facing legal implications that go far beyond poor press. We're talking courtrooms, criminal charges, and the kind of reputational damage that doesn't dissipate with the Netflix special. Lawyers representing the couple have released brief, generic statements denying wrongdoing. They've blamed the outcry on disgruntled former employees and misinterpretations. But here's the problem. Those former employees are showing up with receipts, memoranda, emails, and whistleblower concerns that were submitted and ignored. Some of these documents, purportedly now in the hands of investigators, point to direct involvement from the pair in signing off on financial decisions that had nothing to do with charity activity. That's where the story begins to crack in a very visible way. Several prominent benefactors are speaking out too. One woman, a well-known philanthropist, said that she provided $50,000 to promote adolescent education through the foundation. She says she eventually discovered that no such initiatives had actually been created in the regions they promised to assist. When she sought a report on how her money was used, she received hazy pie charts and no thorough explanation. Her legal team is now exploring action. All of this lands at the worst possible time. Meghan and Harry have leaned heavily into public appearances and content deals to maintain relevance. Their entire image is focused on being the pair that cares, the underdogs who walked away from monarchy to live with meaning. But if that tale falls apart, if the compassion is shown as a marketing ploy and the charity as a financial shell, there may be nothing left to sell. There's also a growing awareness that this scandal could affect how celebrity-led NGOs are regulated. Lawmakers are now pressing for stronger controls governing charitable institutions linked to public people. Some are even advocating background checks and third-party audits as mandatory before any celebrity group can receive significant donations. If those changes happen, the ripple effect might reach over the entire business. For Meghan and Harry, the harm might already be irrevocable. Their quietness, long considered dignity, now reads as avoidance. And the public isn't buying the carefully produced image anymore. People want numbers, accountability, and most of all, truth. The fairy tale they crafted didn't just crack, it collapsed. And what's left behind is a sobering reminder that even the most gorgeous faces can disguise the worst reality.